right, this calls to order the Monday, August 26, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. First item of business is item 1, approval of the minutes from the meeting held on July 29th, 2024. Is there a motion or discussion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
One abstention. I wasn't at the meeting, the last meeting, so I can't vote on the minutes.
Oh, okay.
So it's only proper that I
Noted.
abstain.
But no comments, right? Okay, moving on. Next item of business is item 2, old business, annual review of planning commission bylaws. I think we discussed at the previous meeting that we had another month to review them, and then we just need a vote to approve.
Well, just mention if you have any changes, I mean, there would be a vote to approve as is. The only one thing we had talked about is that you want to have a requirement to review these annually, which is the very last page, is number 4, review of bylaws. We could always take that, we could amend that to make it, just whenever you see fit, basically, but I think it's fine if you want to review them annually.
Okay. I also did notice there's a point in there about voting for the president or chairperson each year, which we need to do because we don't do that. Or we could,
We get to do that annually.
yeah.
Staff has noted that and put a reminder on the calendar, so we will get that in March.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then maybe someone can take over.
That's why we don't have the vote.
I know. Okay, so is there any comments to discussion? If not, does someone make the motion to approve as noted? I guess to be clear, there's no changes this time, right? So it's just approve them as provided.
Maybe just a question. Do we need to change the attested to on the last page?
Yes, the copy I have is updated
Okay.
with my information instead of Kim's. This was the copy from 2023 that you had approved. That's why Kim's name's on it.
Got it, okay.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the annual review of the planning commission bylaws.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item of business is item 3, new business, item 3A, site plan review for 5910 Howe Drive, Fairway, Kansas, as submitted by Mike and Jenny Donahue, buyers under contract, request for a new single-family residence, and exception request for front setback of less than 40 feet and garage wall more than 8 feet in front of the primary door threshold. Basil, will you please provide your staff report?
Yes, I'll let my report stand as submitted. The applicant is requesting 2 exceptions. One is for the setback of 40 feet. All the adjacent properties are at 35. And then the other setback exception is the 8-foot rule of the garage with respect to the front entry door. And staff is not opposed to the application.
Are there any questions for staff? Any comments or discussion?
Well, I'm not really in favor of allowing them to go an additional foot in front of the front entry. I didn't see any reason. I guess I'd like to hear from the designer, the builder, or whoever is here representing that, to why they couldn't make it conform to the requirements.
Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Address 5725 Drive.
Where's the button?
Sorry. And then will you say it again? Sorry.
Craig Nelson, 5725 Windsor Drive. So to answer the question, yes, the 9-foot is 1 foot over, but based on the right sizing of the garage space and the right sizing, meaning the square footage of the house, we felt that it was too much square footage for the house. We're trying to be respectful of green space. We're trying to be respectful of the right sizing of the house to the neighborhood, and to just add additional square footage to the house just to meet that 8 feet, just wasn't something that the owners wanted to do right away, so that's why we're asking for the exception.
This exception adds additional square foot. That doesn't make any
If,
sense to me.
if we brought it from 9 feet to 8 feet, the garage is, let me take a step back. The garage is this, almost minimal size it can be. It's a side entry garage, so we have to keep that footprint static.
Okay.
And so to meet the 8 foot, we would have to bring the front of the house forward by another 1 foot, which adds interior square footage to the house that the owners just didn't
Why
want.
couldn't you step the garage back, take some room out of, you've got a big closet, looks like in a pantry there that wouldn't miss a foot?
I guess we hadn't considered that through design, but ideally, it wasn't something we wanted to take on, or to lose that square footage out of that space.
Because it seems to me, I mean, we have that 8-foot rule, but you guys have even exacerbated that by pulling the entry out and then pushing the area back. So it makes it appear like it's almost 10.5 feet out from the front of the house.
Say that again, I don't follow
Well,
that.
pull up, show us the plan here.
Keep going. Or maybe the other way, sorry, go the other way. After the elevations is the plan,
The floor plan, right? It might only be on this one.
yeah, this is the
Well,
one.
anyway, just as I'm looking at the plan, if you're going in the door, then right to the right of the door, you've pulled that whole area back 4 feet.
Well, I guess, I mean, the front of the building is actually 5'6". Well, 6'6", right, from the face of the garage. But then the entry itself goes back another,
It does step back, yes,
Few
and then
feet.
there's a small front entry space at 4 feet as well. So the front door is actually set at the, I guess, the major horizontal line that you see where the 11.75 and the 12.08, that line, that horizontal line would be the front door.
The garage
Close to
has
that.
a 1-foot bump out.
That's correct. It's a small bump out to, if you, not that we have to switch back to the elevation, but there's a small bump out on that section to just give a little bit more clearance for a car door to open.
It's 1 foot, 10'6".
so that's not for storage or anything, or reveal or anything,
No,
it's just,
it's unfortunately about as small as we feel comfortable making the garage to try to get back to that line. We're just, at 20 foot, I don't know, 0.67, that's pretty minimal garage width. There's a little bit extra, you can kind of see the dash line there. That would be the footprint of the house versus the footprint of the garage.
Well, I can understand the garage width, but I don't see how it would hurt your walk-in closet, or I'm assuming that's a pantry there, it's not labeled. How it would hurt to take that area out of there, because it just, to me, it makes it look like the garage is bumped out 10.5 feet from the front of the house.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I disagree, because the way the bump out works, the entry is actually set back from there's 2 closets, right? And then the
Yeah, and
entry is
there's a
set back.
major, there's like
So-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess in some ways it appears that the face of the entry is really where the face of those closets are. And I think from the street, it's gonna look like the door is actually closer until you get up there and you're underneath the overhang of the house.
With the entry element itself.
Yeah. Yeah, is this, do we not, not everyone has this?
We don't post the floor plans online or broadcast it for security, so, yeah.
And we appreciate that.
Well, now, you do put them in our packets, which makes it a lot easier to understand, like this other house that has the garage in the middle of the house. I was curious just how, what that was about. It's not got anything to do with this, but just, well, it didn't have it on that other house, though. Nope. Mine didn't anyway.
Which isn't a requirement of the submittal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, mine didn't either. You're talking about the garage that you go around the back?
Well, no, this is the one, the garage is in the middle of the house.
Oh,
and you look
okay,
at it
never
from
mind.
the front. I'm like, wow, how did that, I've never seen a house with the garage in the middle. I was just curious how it worked. Not that we have anything to say about it, but.
Any other
Well,
questions for the
anyway,
applicant?
That's just my opinion.
Sure, I appreciate that.
Just, you know, it's like, we have so few rules that we make anybody
Yeah.
follow. And I didn't see why you needed to gain that extra foot. When there's, in my opinion, lots of options to take it out of the house. You were talking about not wanting to make the house any bigger, but you did. And the second floor is all attic, so it's like, so what, you know?
No, the second floor has some living space in it. Oh, above that
Not above the
general
garage,
space.
yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No, we felt like we tried to really right-size the house appropriately and not take over the entire square footage or green space, up to the green space as well.
Are there other comments or discussion?
I mean, one clarification, as far as if the Commissioner Denton is not supportive, I mean, they can push the door, the entry door 1 foot, but
Right, yeah, it would reduce
solve the
that.
problem, but.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're done asking questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Personal opinion, given that the entry is kind of like a structure and not just like a porch, and if you do the math, it's, I think, 6'6", the face of it is from the furthest face of the garage. So with that being said, I'm not sure that either moving the walls next to the door out a foot, or I guess moving the door up a foot really does much from the exterior of the house. So with that being said, I don't see a real issue with this.
I'd probably agree. It's a structural projection. It gives it some depth. There's some extra depth with the entry pushed back, so I think it probably works better that way versus pushing the door forward a foot just to meet the requirements.
Yeah, I think a real mitigating factor for me, given Commissioner Denton's concerns, is it is actually a side entry garage, so that does, in my opinion, benefit the appearance of the house more so than moving the front of the house, the door, another foot forward.
Any other discussion, or do we want to make a motion?
Just one clarification as far as the recommendation. They are going to remove a right-of-way tree, and the reason why they did not apply for the right-of-way tree removal, the property is still not in their name, so as soon as it's changed, they'll apply for that.
I guess one other clarification, we did not discuss the front setback. right now, they're also seeking an exception to match the adjacent properties and not meet the 40-foot front setback. I don't necessarily have any concerns with that, but if anyone has any comments on that, we should discuss that as well.
I don't have any concerns.
I would agree. If the adjacent properties are all at the same setback, then it's okay with me.
That's fine with me.
Same.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve the plans as submitted and grant the exception for the 35-foot setback and the 9-foot projection from the front door to the front face of the garage.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Next item of business is item B, site plan review for 6,000 El Monte Street, Fairway, Kansas, as submitted by Caleb George of Chris George Custom Homes, property owner. Request for a new single-family residence and exception request for fence location on corner lot. Basil, will you please provide your staff report?
Again, I'll let my report stand as submitted. They are requesting exception for the fence. It's a side property, so they are wanting the fence to be at the property line, 12 feet from the curb. And they do have right-of-way trees they're removing. I think the last I heard was 3 trees, small caliber trees, and they submitted the application for that. Staff is not opposed to, we recommend the approval of the application. And
Any
I'm open to
questions?
questions.
Any questions for staff?
I'm assuming that the fence being set back the way it's planned, there won't be any sightline easement issues at all at the corner.
That is correct, and I think the proposal is wrought iron fence, so.
Thank you.
Is there any comments or discussion? Sorry. go ahead.
Which trees are you talking about removing? Because the plan doesn't, they just show the tree caliper sizes, it doesn't show which ones would be demoed.
3 of them were the entry, the garage entry, it's from the side street. So there are 3 of them that's gonna be affected. And the caliber on the trees, our right-of-way specialist went out and some of those sizes are not correct, so there were some emails going to the owner, and they're aware of it, and they're gonna proceed once they get the approval.
Thank you.
So the center ones, basically, if you see where the garage is. If you see that 20-foot wide
Yep.
entry, so 3 of them are gonna be, 2 are the drip zone and 1 is in the center of the driveway.
Any other questions for staff or discussion? So essentially, the discussion is also regarding the fence location.
Yeah, I think the fence location's generally in accordance with some others on that street. One of them pretty recent, I think. I'm not sure if it's back-to-back with this one or not. We had one a couple months ago.
That is correct. There was another one on Almonte recently.
So I'm not opposed to it. I think it's, the one that's, that we approved a couple months ago has been installed. I think it looks fine. Doesn't encroach on anything.
Just to clarify for staff, reading this plan, I can't delineate. The 6-foot privacy cedar fence stops before, at the regulation that we're required to, and then it transitions to 4 foot? Is that correct? Because right now, it looks like the 6-foot runs along the entire back property line is what it shows. Just says proposed cedar fence, and it doesn't show delineate where it transitions to the 4-foot black wrought iron. It shows it along 60th Street, but does it transition out of the right of way?
Well, it's right on the property line, and then it makes the turn to the corner of the house. And in the back, it's, so he's just proposing the wrought iron, and I think the applicant is here, and I think he did that because that's how he got approval on another house on 59th Street. So he's doing, I mean, staff does not have an issue actually with a privacy fence in that area because the corner of the intersection is far away from the fence. I think there's more obstruction from the trees than the fence itself to traffic.
The one that we approved on 59th and El Monte stopped the privacy fence, where the 6-foot privacy fence.
That one
At the-
stopped at the entry. It made a turn and then it turned a couple of feet to the garage.
Right, but at the back property line, it also goes back in wrought iron and then transitions on the backside to
And
privacy.
it transitioned
Yeah.
to a privacy fence.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Is that what they're proposing here? The same, follow suit?
I think so because he's proposing
Yeah.
6 foot.
Yeah, it's same corner, same situation, it's just one block down.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, like, they're not meeting the 12-foot off the building property line. Right, 12 feet's measured from the property line, is that correct?
That's right.
But they are 11.7 feet from the sidewalk, is that correct? Am I reading that right? Or is that not the, yeah, that's the sidewalk that goes around the curves.
I don't believe that street has a sidewalk. I think that's just the curb that it's showing.
Oh, that's the curb, so
Yeah.
they're 11.7 feet from the curb, even though the property line is set back.
Correct.
Yeah.
They are a distance from the curb, they're not right at the edge of the curb.
No.
Which I think that's the intent behind the 12-foot. When we came up with that requirement a long time ago, Ron could probably attest to this, but the idea was we didn't want people putting fences right at the edge of the street.
Right. Yeah, this one's got a natural setback with the property line.
They will have an issue with, I think there's a pole or equipment at the corner, so I don't know how they're gonna adjust for that, because it's gonna go through the fence, but they can make a turn, a couple of turns. So,
Okay, is there any questions for the applicant, or if not, would you guys like to discuss and then make a motion?
I'd make a motion that we approve the plans for 6,000 El Monte Street on the plans and recommendations submitted by the staff, and with the exception to allow the fence in the location as shown along the property line.
Is there a second?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, next item of business is item C, Site plan review for 5915 Alhambra Street, Fairway, Kansas, as submitted by Caleb George of Chris George Custom Homes, property owner, request for a new single-family residence.
Again, I'll let my report stand as submitted. It meets all the recommendation, and staff recommends approval of this application.
Any questions for staff? If none, is there any discussion? Or would someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the plan as submitted.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item of business is item D, site plan review for 5760 Windsor Circle, Fairway, Kansas, as submitted by Travis Holt, property owner, request for a new single-family residence and exception request for a section of the driveway width to exceed 20 feet and east side setback. Basil, will you please provide your staff report?
Again, I'll let the report stand as submitted. They are seeking two exceptions. One is the driveway width. They're exceeding that, and on the plans, I think, for your reference, I redlined some areas. So they are at 3510, and our rule is 20 feet maximum. So they are seeking that exception. As far as the side setback exception, if you grant the approval, I'm still gonna need a revised survey giving me the back setback line width, because that will determine the setback. So we estimated it's about 22 feet. The existing house was at 16 and a half feet. Their proposal is 21.8, so they are reducing the nonconformity, and staff is not opposed to that application. And I'm open to question for clarification.
Did they address green space in here? Did they address green space in here?
Yes, the green space, I mean, they're right at the green space. We had discussion with the applicant. If he can push the house back, then the driveway will get bigger, so there's a chance they're gonna exceed the green space with that if they push the house back. But I think the existing was at 16 and a half, and the new one is 21.8, I think.
In
The
regards
applicant
to-
submitted a revised calculation. I calculated it at 220, he came with 219, so it's about a foot exception that they're seeking
For the
for the setback.
setback, okay. But the green space is okay with the driveway
The
as shown?
green space is okay with what they had. I think they had an extra couple of square feet, not much.
Okay.
So what is that area that's 35 foot 10 inches long?
They want to use it as parking.
I mean, it doesn't even, they call it a driveway, but it's more like a couple of parking stalls.
It is a
guess
couple
you-
of parking stalls,
You
I
loop
think.
around to the back to go into the garage?
The garage is from the back, so it's a back entry to the garage.
Can you slide that plane down just a bit? I don't-
Figure out how they're getting
Oh,
in.
that's, okay.
Well, that's
Oh, so that whole
existing.
big thing. Oh, and is that a separate basketball court?
Well, they're using the driveway, the entry to the garage they're gonna put a basketball pole.
You mean so that whole That whole area behind the
That
garage,
whole,
that's all concrete?
that's all concrete.
And then this whole area in the front, we don't have any rules against providing extra parking spaces like that on your lot?
We don't. I mean, the only rule is maximum 20 feet. In front of the building line. So anything behind the building line, there is no limit as far as the concrete driveway. The applicant is here if you need to ask any questions.
And even with all these concrete drives and we're still in the green space. Okay.
That is correct, and if you notice, the driveway is really not that wide. It's about, I don't know, 10 or 12 feet wide. And then they have in front of the garage, they have a bigger area between that parking area and the garage. So that's considered green space. And then they have that feature in front of the entry, so it's not all concrete.
Well, that feature in front is concrete, right? Proposed slab,
Well,
it's like a sidewalk.
not all of it, so
Sure.
part of it is, but not all of it. But anything greater than 4 feet, then that's considered green space. If you have concrete, then if it's less than 4 feet, then it counts against you. If it's greater than 4 feet, then it's considered green space.
Sure. Will the applicant please come forward and state their name and address for the record?
Greg Nelson, 5725 Windsor.
Would-
Go ahead.
I guess my question would be, is there really a need for the proposed driveway in the front, or what is the?
Yeah, I think it's trying to be respectful for the neighborhood. It's on a cul-de-sac with limited parking. There's, due to the shape and configuration of the garage and having guests and family members and others drive all the way to the back, they feel like it's a better idea to give a couple of parking spaces to the front edge. We tried to limit the depth of the parking spaces to 20 feet, not recognizing the 30 feet after Basil and I had conversations. It does make sense to me, but it also kind of would have been preferred to have a circle drive on the site, but obviously that's just not obtainable. So we felt like this was a pretty reasonable compromise, and giving them the ability to have a couple of extra parking spots outside of just the cul-de-sac, being a fairly quiet neighborhood.
How wide is that parking area, or how, in this view, how?
20 feet, the like north to south direction, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I based the 20 feet on. I didn't, honestly, in design, didn't think of it in the opposite direction as well.
Any other questions for the applicant?
What is it in the driveways in the cul-de-sac like? Do they have any of the features like this with their setup?
No, but there are some, I guess the neighbor's house has a fairly substantial front driveway. It's all front-loaded because it's front side of the house, but no other features quite like this. I would say most of the other drives in the neighborhood have at least space for a few extra cars to come and go, aside from just what's available for the residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess my thoughts are, I have a next door neighbor who has the same configuration, and they've landscaped around it in a manner you can't really tell, and so they have lots of kids, and it makes sense for them, and so I'm not opposed to this. It does, in this view, it does look really daunting, like a lot of concrete, but that's what they prefer, I don't have an objection to it.
Yeah, I think the rationale the applicant provided, given that, you know, it is a kind of an odd-shaped lot and very little frontage. And I can imagine if you have some guests over, it could be kind of hard to find a place to park on the street without the way it's configured on a cul-de-sac. I've never lived on a cul-de-sac, so I don't have those same experiences, but I can empathize with the landowner.
Other thoughts?
I think I agree with the thoughts that were shared. As opposed to parking on the street, I think this is a better solution, particularly on a cul-de-sac. So I think we have approved stuff like this, maybe not quite so big, but in principle, I think it attempts to meet what we're trying to achieve.
Can I add, if you guys propose approval, yeah, I did not, I just noticed that I need a revised plot plan, so that hopefully will be part of the recommendation. And the reason why the watershed called for drainage all the way to the back, but on this site plan, it's shown that it's connected to a trench, which the watershed analysis did not call for that. So I just need a clean site plan.
Any other comments?
It looks like a lot of concrete, but I guess if it meets the code requirements,
Would someone like to make a motion? I guess I will say, it doesn't meet the code requirements in the fact that we are getting the exception for the wider portion of concrete. But yes, I understood that it meets the green space requirements. So if someone makes a motion to approve, then they would need to include the request for the exception, as well as the plot for Basel.
And that's to submit a revised plot plan.
Yes.
I'd make a motion that we approve the plans with the exception of the width of the driveway pending submittal of a revised plot plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, next item of business is item E, site plan review for 6010 Lockton Lane, Fairway, Kansas, as submitted by Clint Harris, property owner. Request for a new single-family residence and exception requests front setback of less than 40 feet and window hierarchy on the south facade. Basil, will you please provide your staff report?
Again, I'll let my report stand as submitted with a couple of clarification. As far as the 40-foot setback exception, the existing house was at the 35-foot line. They are recessing it to the 40-feet line, so it's gonna be behind everybody's property by 5 feet, the neighbors, but they meet the 40-foot, so that's just a clarification. Technically, they don't need a setback, but the house is gonna be recessed 5 feet in compared to the neighbors. So that's the clarification I have, and then the other setback is the windows. The lower windows are smaller than the upper windows, and that's an exception.
Is that referring to the east elevation? Where there's,
It is referring to the south elevation.
oh, where the little band of windows is below
Those
the large?
four square windows are not matching. They're smaller than the bigger. And per our regulation, it has to be the opposite. Either the same size or the upper windows are smaller.
Okay.
So they are seeking an exception for that.
Ron, do you know much about that requirement, like why that came about?
No,
Okay.
there was somebody on the commission that thought that was a good idea, and he pushed forward and they did it. I never did understand why they would do stuff like that, but.
So just real quick question on the first part. You said they meet the setback requirements, but it's not the same as the neighbors.
That's right. The neighbors are at the 35-foot line. So they pushed, the house is pushed to the 40, but it was, when I did the review, I looked at the existing house, it was at the 35, and then
But we
the
don't-
architect recognized that, and he emailed me after we posted the agenda.
So they don't need approval for that then?
No, they don't, but it's still recessed 5 feet from the other neighbors.
So I'm not saying I necessarily think we should do this, but if we wanted to require a 35-foot setback, could we do that?
We would also be able to.
Okay.
Would you please come forward and state your name and address for the record?
Highway 615 East 40th. We would be open to moving the house up 5 feet,
Why did you put it at 40 feet?
just to meet R1, the front setback requirements for new houses.
He was trying to get along with us.
You didn't realize if the other houses were forward that you could.
We were trying to meet the 40-foot front setback outlined in the zoning guidelines.
We appreciate your.
Yeah, but we're definitely open to moving the house up 5 feet and giving the house a bigger backyard by 5 feet.
So basically, back to your original staff report.
Yeah, and again, I would say I measured a bunch of the houses through the county website, and not all of them are at the 35-foot line, so it's on Lockton for some reason. Lockton has a small curve, and some I measured at 36, some at 35, so it wasn't consistent.
So to approve the 35-foot, that is what would require an exception, because the
Yeah,
code does, call
that
for
would.
40.
And then maybe another question for the applicant. I guess these windows on the main floor, is that for like a bathroom? Is that why they're?
Sure, it's a master closet on the first floor and a kid's bedroom on the second floor.
Okay.
I had a quick question for the applicant. What's the height, overall height of the structure with the chimney?
It's 28 feet,
That's what you show scales with to ridge line, but what's it with the chimney?
20, the chimney sits under the 28 feet, so it's probably, which chimney? There's two chimneys.
I'm sorry, the chimney on the back
That's
elevation.
okay. We need to be 4 feet above the nearest roof line within 10 feet. So it's probably gonna be 30 to 32.
Yeah, I think that's gonna exceed the requirement, 30 feet though.
Okay.
You might wanna look at that.
The chimney has no, you can go beyond the 30 with the chimney. So it's the
You
ridge
can?
line
Okay.
of the house.
Just the ridge line? We had another applicant in that I thought that we had to do something with the things on the roof. It was due to the chimney, but
We had that discussion, but I think the wording is the ridge line or the height of the house. So
Gotcha.
that's a feature
okay, thank you.
that you can go over 30. So basically, the height is 28 of the house, and then the elevation is changing 2 feet. The existing grade is, from where he's measuring, there's 2 feet of elevation change. So it puts it right at 30.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the setback or the windows?
I think we should treat him like we've treated everybody else. If the other houses are 35 feet, then we should let him be at 35 feet, if that's what they want to do. And I don't have a problem with the windows. It's just a room, I mean, you know, according to what we've been told, it's a bedroom or a
Closet, yeah.
I would agree with that too. They also exceed the window requirements on the elevations, so there's more glass in the structure than is required by code. Overall.
Yeah, I agree on the setback. I think particularly if the other houses are at 35 to 36, having one that's at 40 might actually look worse. So I would go as far as to say that's what it should be. And then the windows, again, I don't have an issue with that. I understand why it is the way it is.
So just a procedural question for council. The way that it's written now, I see if we approve the motion as written, that would allow them to have the setback at 35 feet.
I would ask that any motion identify the exceptions that you are approving. So it'd be a 35-foot front setback and the window, the
South.
windows on the south. facade.
Okay.
And would that require a resubmittal of the plans then as well?
Well, just again, resubmittal of the plot plan.
Okay.
Wait, I thought the plan was for the 35 feet, is it not?
That's half the reason I asked is what does the plan say?
It's at 40 at the moment.
Or is it, I didn't.
So you'd have to resubmit the plot.
Okay.
Resubmit the plan.
Submit, it's written as incongruous with that.
No. Yeah.
Okay, any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion. I would make a motion that we approve the plans based on an exception for the 35-foot setback and the windows on the south elevation pending resubmittal of the plot plan.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, next item of business is item 4, additional business. Item A, set the next meeting date for September 30th, 2024. We have applications.
We have one application for a generator, and I think there may be another one, and then today, maybe 2 more houses, but the deadline is Friday, so.
Wait, did the generator one come in today, you said?
The generator is a side,
Because the power went out yesterday, so I didn't know if that was. Okay.
That's a pretty quick submittal.
They're like, can't take it. I'm sorry. All right, last item of business is a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.